October 1st, 2013. FBI agents surround a public library in San Francisco, closing in on the world's most wanted cybercriminal. For 2 years, the FBI has hunted Dread Pirate Roberts, the anonymous mastermind behind a billion-dollar drug empire that exists beyond their reach. But what finally exposed him wasn't sophisticated hacking or international cooperation. It was a forum post from 2011, asking a coding question, one forgotten username, against the full force of the FBI, DEA, and IRS. What Ross Ulbricht doesn't know, as he types commands to his dark web empire, is that 2 of the agents hunting him are stealing millions in Bitcoin for themselves. The investigation that found his one mistake is itself corrupted from the inside. Little did he know, the corruption runs deeper than anyone imagined. How does a libertarian programmer's single slip destroy his perfect system of anonymity? Ross Ulbricht sits at a small wooden table in Glen Park Library. His fingers dance across his laptop keyboard. 3:15 in the afternoon. Outside, federal agents position themselves at every exit. They've been planning this moment for months. The challenge isn't finding him anymore. The challenge is catching him before he can hit a single button. Because Ross isn't just browsing the internet, he's logged in as Dread Pirate Roberts, administrator of the largest criminal marketplace in history. Silk Road, $213 million in drug sales, 146,746 buyers, 3,177 vendors, all operating in perfect anonymity. Or so they thought. Here's what makes this arrest different from any other drug bust in history. Ross doesn't run a cartel. He doesn't own warehouses. He doesn't smuggle products across borders. He built a website, a marketplace where the technology itself, Tor network encryption and Bitcoin transactions, made everyone invisible. The perfect crime, designed by a libertarian programmer who believed in absolute freedom. But here's the insane part. While some FBI agents worked tirelessly to build this case, 2 other agents saw an opportunity. They weren't investigating Silk Road. They were stealing from it. DEA agent Carl Force and Secret Service agent Sean Bridges. Over $1.6 million in Bitcoin, embezzled while pretending to serve justice. Ross has no idea that the system hunting him is as corrupt as the empire he built. What he doesn't know yet is that his philosophical dream is about to collide with a reality he never anticipated. What Ross couldn't know was that the question which would doom him was asked 2 years earlier, in a moment of desperation that seemed completely innocent at the time. February 2011. Ross Ulbricht launches Silk Road from his apartment in Austin, Texas, 26 years old, a former physics student with a master's in engineering and a dream. Not a dream of drug trafficking, a dream of pure economic freedom. His vision is radical, a marketplace where government couldn't interfere, where buyers and sellers could exchange anything without coercion. He calls it an economic simulation to give people a first-hand experience of what it would be like to live in a world without the systemic use of force. The technology makes it possible. Tor, the onion router, bounces internet traffic through multiple encrypted layers, making users untraceable. Bitcoin provides anonymous digital currency. Together, they create what Ross believes is perfect anonymity. Here's the psychological trick that made it work. He wasn't selling drugs. He was selling freedom from government control. A philosophy that would attract both idealists and criminals. But a marketplace needs users. So Ross starts promoting. He creates a username, Altoid, posts on drug forums like Shroomery, posts on Bitcoin forums. Has anyone seen Silk Road yet? It's kind of like an anonymous Amazon. The site grows faster than he imagined. What started as a libertarian bookstore quickly becomes dominated by drug vendors. MDMA, cocaine, prescription pills. Everything except weapons and child pornography, which Ross bans. He tells himself he's reducing harm. These drugs would be sold anyway. At least now they're tested and reviewed like products on Amazon. He adopts a new persona from his favorite movie, The Princess Bride, Dread Pirate Roberts, DPR, a name that inspires both respect and fear. But here's what he didn't anticipate. Running a criminal empire is lonely work. Ross needs help, technical help. In late 2011, he needs a developer, so Altoid posts on a Bitcoin forum, looking for the best and brightest to join his venture. Then he makes the mistake. The tiny mistake that will eventually cost him everything. He includes a contact email, rossulbrichtagmail.com, same username, real email address. The anonymous Dread Pirate Roberts just connected himself to Ross Ulbricht from Austin, Texas. Silence. He doesn't realize what he's done. The post sits there, in plain sight, on a public forum that gets archived by multiple websites. Permanent, searchable, waiting. What Ross couldn't know was that this single moment of carelessness would haunt him for 2 years. That investigators would eventually stumble across it. That it would become the thread that unravels everything. But that discovery was still far away, because finding a username and an email address isn't enough to bring down an empire. The FBI still has to locate servers hidden behind Tor encryption, track Bitcoin through deliberately obscured blockchain transactions, prove that Ross Ulbricht and Dread Pirate Roberts are the same person, build a prosecutable case. That investigation would take 2 years, 4 federal agencies, and include some agents who weren't there to serve justice at all. 2012. Multiple investigation teams attack the Silk Road problem from different angles. FBI Cyber Division agent Christopher Tarbell uses technical exploits, trying to locate the servers hosting the site. IRS criminal investigation agent Gary Alford follows the Bitcoin, tracking the digital money through its blockchain maze. DEA and Homeland Security work undercover operations, making buys and infiltrating vendor networks. But 2 agents see something different, an opportunity. Carl Force, a 15-year DEA veteran, goes undercover on Silk Road as Knob, posing as a drug smuggler to build a relationship with Dread Pirate Roberts. What Ross doesn't know is that Force is stealing Bitcoin from the investigation, moving it into personal accounts, over $800,000 worth. Secret Service agent Sean Bridges has access to federal databases tracking Bitcoin transactions. He uses that access to identify and steal from Silk Road accounts, embezzling over $820,000. While investigating financial crimes, he commits them. And here's the thing, their fellow investigators have no idea. The manhunt continues, clean agents working alongside dirty ones, everyone chasing the same target. Unbeknownst to any of them, both sides of this war were breaking the law. January 2013. Curtis Green, a Silk Road administrator who Ross hired to help manage the growing site, gets arrested by DEA agents in Utah. They seize his computer, his passwords, everything. Carl Force, the corrupt DEA agent, sees an opportunity. He tells Ross that Curtis is cooperating with police, feeding them information, threatening the entire operation. Ross faces a decision. His libertarian philosophy says he opposes all violence and coercion, but his empire is at stake. Variety Jones, his online mentor and dark advisor, has been telling him for months that he needs to be willing to make hard choices, that Dread Pirate Roberts must be feared. Here's the psychological weakness that made it work. Ross wasn't building a business anymore. He was protecting an identity, and identities must be defended. Ross makes the call. He arranges a hit, $80,000 in Bitcoin, paid to what he thinks is a hitman who will make Curtis Green disappear. The hit is carried out. Force sends Ross photos of Curtis's staged death, a completely fabricated scene where Curtis lies on the floor, covered in Campbell's soup to look like blood. Curtis is alive. The DEA has him in protective custody, but Ross believes he's dead, and he's relieved. He writes in his private journal, "Sent payment to angels for hit-on blackmailer. Silence. This won't be the last time. Over the following months, Ross allegedly commissions multiple additional murders, paying approximately $730,000 in Bitcoin to eliminate threats. None of these murders actually occur. Some are fake stings, others never happen at all. But Ross believes they did. The philosopher-programmer, who started with a vision of nonviolent economic freedom, has become someone who orders killings to protect his power. The libertarian dream meets reality and loses. While Ross descends into darkness, the honest investigators are closing in. Because that Altoid post from 2011? They found it, July 2013. Gary Alford, following Bitcoin transaction patterns, narrows Ross's location to the San Francisco Bay Area. Christopher Tarbell, using technical exploits against the Silk Road servers, locates them in Iceland and begins forensic analysis. Then a junior IRS investigator does a simple Google search, looking for early mentions of Silk Road, finds the Altoid promotional posts from 2011, then finds the other Altoid post, the one asking for a developer, with an email address, rossulbricht@gmail.com. Silence. They run the name. Ross William Ulbricht, age 29, grew up in Austin, Texas, physics degree from UT Dallas, master's from Penn State, moved to San Francisco in 2012, libertarian. Online presence matches the philosophy of Dread Pirate Roberts perfectly. Then Homeland Security flags something else. Fake IDs being shipped to Ross's San Francisco address. Multiple identities. More evidence. Every thread points to the same person in the same city. Surveillance begins. They watch Ross, confirm his routines, and they notice something. He works frequently at Glen Park Library, a quiet neighborhood spot where he can use public Wi-Fi without leaving traces on his home network. But here's the problem. Ross runs everything through encryption. If he has even 5 seconds of warning, he can lock down his laptop, erase evidence, walk away clean. The arrest has to be perfect. They need him logged in, screens unlocked, no time to react. What Ross didn't know was that investigators had already planned the exact moment of his capture. Down to the second, September 2013. The FBI plans the operation. They'll stage a distraction near his table. While he's looking away, an agent will grab his laptop before he can close it. Simultaneous seizures will take down the servers in Iceland and secure his Bitcoin wallets. Ross sits at his usual table, laptop open, working through administrator tasks on Silk Road. The library is quiet. A few students. An elderly woman reading newspapers. Nothing unusual. Near his table, 2 people start arguing. A couple, fighting about something. Their voices rise. Ross glances over. An FBI agent moves in from behind, grabs the laptop, holds it open. The screen shows everything. Logged in as Dread Pirate Roberts, administrator panel, chat conversations, full access. Agents swarm from every direction. Ross Ulbricht is arrested. Read his Miranda rights. Within hours, servers in Iceland go dark. Bitcoin wallets seized. 144,000 Bitcoins worth $28.5 million at the time. Later valued at over $1 billion. The Dread Pirate Roberts empire collapses. Not with encrypted battles or technical warfare. With a distraction and a grabbed laptop. 2 years of investigation. Ended in seconds. But that's not the scary part. Here's what makes this story truly dark. The investigation that caught Ross was itself criminal. May 2015. Ross Ulbricht is sentenced to life in prison without possibility of parole. Double life plus 40 years. Judge Catherine Forrest calls his actions unprecedented, saying he must bear the consequences of breaking new ground in criminal enterprise. Life without parole. That same year, Carl Force and Sean Bridges are charged with theft, money laundering, and obstruction of justice. The corrupt agents who stole over $1.6 million while investigating Silk Road. Their sentences? Force gets 78 months. Bridges gets 71 months, less than 7 years, for crimes they committed while wearing badges. Ross gets life for creating a website. The corrupt agents get 6 years for stealing millions during a federal investigation. Silence. Curtis Green, the administrator Ross believed was murdered, testifies at trial. He's alive. The hit was fake, but Ross's intent was real. The payment was real. The willingness to kill was real. And here's the final twist. Sean Bridges, after serving his sentence for stealing Bitcoin during the Silk Road investigation, immediately started stealing cryptocurrency again. He was arrested a second time for embezzling from the very case that was supposed to reform him. Everyone was compromised. Everyone broke the law. Today, Ross Ulbricht remains in federal prison. His mother, Lynn Ulbricht, campaigns for clemency, arguing that a life sentence for nonviolent charges related to a website is disproportionate. Supporters call him a political prisoner, punished for his libertarian beliefs. Critics say he commissioned murders and profited from addiction and suffering. Silk Road spawned dozens of successors. Silk Road 2.0, Alphabay, Dream Market. Each eventually shut down, each replaced by another. The dark web drug trade continues, larger than ever. The irony is almost poetic. Ross built a system designed to be mathematically untraceable. Perfect encryption, perfect anonymity, perfect security, defeated by a forum post, one username, one email address, one moment of carelessness when Silk Road was just a dream and Ross was desperate for help. It exploited a fundamental human truth. Perfection isn't a technology problem. It's a human problem. The technology wasn't the vulnerability. Human behavior was. It always is. But if you think the corruption in the Silk Road case was shocking, you haven't heard about what happened when dark web investigators started getting blackmailed by the very criminals they were hunting, and some of them started paying. That's a story for another time.